Alright, let's do this. In order to integrate the art for this game, I've created a design folder in here. And inside that folder we can see 4 files. We have Full Arcade, Hammer, Mole, and Whack-A-Mole Machine. Okay, so the first thing that we want to do is to integrate the Full Arcade. If you drag and drop this in the hierarchy, you're going to see that you're now inside a huge room with several machines. Okay, and the first adjustment that we have to make here is the size. Okay, because the player is right here, the player is in a height of 2 more or less, and well, the arcade is maybe too big. Okay, so we have to select it, and with the scaling tool we're going to change the size of this arcade. Okay, so it's going to fit better. So we just choose this cube, scale it down a little bit, and then reposition to see if we get some a nice value. Okay, so now that I've moved the player back, and we just need to reduce a little bit more. Okay, so maybe if we use 0.25, I think this is going to be better. Okay, so let's move the room down a little bit. I select the arcade, move it down until we can almost not see, we can see the entire table that we created here. Okay, so I think this is a nice value. Okay, the player might be a bit too high as well, but we can adjust that later. Okay, so we have the arcade here, and the first thing that you notice is that the arcade is dark because the light that we have here is basically directional. It just works as the sun. So what we want to do is to change its type from directional to point. Okay, and we can also remove any rotation that we have because it's going to work basically as a lamp. And what we can do here is we can increase the range of this light, and you can see that the scene is becoming a bit lighter now. And we can adjust the intensity as well if you want to make it clearer. Not too much because it's going to be very exaggerated, but well, we can make one light here, and we can also change the color of this light. Okay, instead of using this white, we can change the colors here at the ceiling. So we can use a blue color. Okay, maybe increase its intensity a little bit, so it's going to look like this. And what we can do is we can duplicate that directional light by right-clicking on it and choosing duplicate. Then we move this light to the other side and we change its color to pink. Okay, so it looks like this. Alright, so it feels a lot more arcade-ish than before. Okay, we have 2 lights, they are colored, and well, you can basically make any setting that you want here. Okay, so the player right now is facing this table here, and we have to integrate our new table with our new moles. So first of all, let's move the player and the table to another position, okay, and the moles as well. So we just move them here and maybe move them back a little bit more. Okay, so we're kind of defining where the player is going to play the game. And if we try to play the game right now, you're going to see that we are here in the scene, the moles are appearing, and we can interact just as before. Okay, it's working just fine. But now we want to integrate our new Whack-A-Mole table. Okay, we want it to look like the ones that we have here and swap the moles with these ones that are added here. Okay, so the first thing is we need to integrate the mole and then the table. Let's work on this logic in the next video. To make it easier for us to integrate the table, we're going to hide a few things. So we're going to select the mole container and click on this checkbox here so they're all hidden. Okay, so we have more room to play with. Now we're going to drag the Whack-A-Mole machine and we're going to drop in the mole container. Okay, so we just drag and drop, and the mole container, well, let's see if we can find it. It's disabled as well. Actually, the Whack-A-Mole machine should be in the table. Okay, so we drag and drop in the table. Right? So we have our machine in here. We need to scale it down, so to 0.25, I think is the size that we're using in the previous one. And once we do this, we have to basically reposition it and rotate it. So we move it down, so it's going to be touching the floor. And then we change the rotation vertically to -90. That's going to be here. Okay? Then we change it just a little bit more, so it's going to be in this position. Okay, so we have our table here, and we can select all of the other cubes that we made, okay, these brown cubes, and we can right click and choose delete. Okay, so it's much clearer now. Okay, we can even move our machine a bit more down. Okay, so this position is going to be fine. And now we have to deal with the moles that we have here. Okay, we need to adjust them. Okay, so we need to reactivate our mole container. Okay, so it works like this, and we have to reposition our moles so they are inside these slots. Okay, so we have to do a little bit of positioning here, and to help you, you can click here where it says perspective, so it becomes isometric. So you're going to see this in a 2D way, in a two-dimensional way, and press the y-axis. So you're going to look from the top. Okay, this is going to make your work much easier into repositioning things. Okay, so first of all, let's move the mole container so the middle mole is going to be here. Okay, and now we have to change the size of them. Alright, so let's change the size of this so it's going to be more or less the size of the mole behind, okay, of the room that we have. So this one should be fine. And can press apply so the others are resized as well. Once more, we move the mole container so it's going to fit better, the middle one. And now we basically have to adjust the numbers of the ones that we have here. Notice that we have an offset of 0.9 units here. Okay, so we want to change that to, let's see how that would be. This is going to be 0.5. Okay, so 0.5 is going to be our magical number here to reposition everything in the proper places. So this one is going to be minus 0.5. Okay, mole 3 minus 0.5 and positive 0.5. Okay, so it's something that is very, very helpful for you. Okay, you could just try to manually fit everything, or you can just memorize the numbers, find what are the proper numbers, so the moles are going to fit correctly. Okay, so this one minus 0.5 and 0.5 on X, and here 0.5 on X and 0.5 on Z. Okay, so they are here. Alright, and notice that we also have to set something else. Okay, it's the visible height and the hidden height. Okay, so the visible height is going to be where we can see the mole. So this time it's going to be minus 0.5, as I can see here. So let's change that. Visible height is going to be minus 0.5. And when it's hidden, it should be somewhere here. Okay, so minus 0.8. So hidden height is minus 0.8. Okay, let's move that back to minus 0.5 so we can see it properly, and then we're going to apply the mole. Okay, and we can adjust the height of all the other moles as well. So instead of 0.2, minus 0.5. Okay, so all of our moles are here now. And if we press the play button, we can give this a try. Okay, so we have the moles here, they're appearing, they move up and they move down, okay, just like it was before in the game. Okay, we can even move the player closer to this. We can already remove the isometric mode. We can go back to perspective and select the player. Let's change its height to 1.7, so it's going to be closer, and move it closer to the machine. Okay, so it's going to have a better feeling. We can press play, we are in the arcade, and you can see this much better. Okay, this is perfect. And now we have to integrate the mole. Okay, this is going to be one of the easiest steps here. Okay, so what we want to do here is, let me collapse a few things here. We want to drag the mole to our hierarchy. Okay, let's not put it under any game object. And after we do this, we drag the mole inside the first mole prefab. So we just have to replace one with the other. Okay, so we grab the first mole, we put inside one of the mole prefabs. Let's change the position to 0, 0, 0. So it's going to be inside our mole. And we're going to resize it, okay, until it's on a nice size. Okay, we can change the position again to 0, 0, 0. It's going to be right here, and we can move it so the top of its head is going to be on the top of our original mole here, and we can rotate it a few degrees. So we rotate minus 90 degrees, and you're going to see why we're doing this. Okay, we're doing this, putting the model inside the original game object, because we want to preserve any logic that we wrote here. We're just changing the visuals, but we want the collision logic in the script to work the same. So we put the model inside our original model, original mole prefab, then we remove the mesh render, and we remove the mesh filter. Okay, so we just have the mole now. And now we can choose the mole and hit the apply button, so all of them are magically updated. So the game looks like this right now. Okay, and maybe since we have new moles, we can increase their height. Okay, instead of being minus 0.5, it could be something like minus 0.35. Okay, so let's change that. Instead of minus 0.5, minus 0.35. Let's put it here as well so we can see it nicely. And we hit the apply button. And let's put all of the other ones in minus 0.35. Okay, so we have this. We can save this. We can press the play button. And here we are. We can see that the molds appear, and well, it's working just fine. Okay, we have all of the molds. We could configure the height of these molds, and well, it's working very, very well here. Okay, so now that we have this, we're going to work on a very simple improvement, is to basically implement a hammer here. Okay, so let's work on this in the next video. Okay, so let's make a simple hammer logic. What we want to do is we want to right click in the hierarchy, select create empty, and we're going to rename this game object as hammer. Okay, and we're going to drag and drop our hammer model inside of our hammer game object. Okay, and you notice that it's a bit too big, so let's change its size. It's going to be much, much smaller, and put it on 0, 0, 0. So if we look closer at the hammer, it's going to look like this. Okay, so the first step that we want to do here is to adjust the hammer position. Okay, so we can actually see it. So let's move it a bit in front of the player, and a little trick is if you go to the game window, you can see the hammer better. Okay, now we change its rotation on the x-axis to be 90 on x. Okay, and the z position can be closer to the player, so it's going to be more or less here. Okay, and vertically it can move down a little bit more. Okay, so if you press the play button, you can see that the hammer is just sitting there static. We want to put it in a position where it's not going to be in front of the game. So let's move it into other places here and, well, write down the values. So let's see, I think this is going to be good. Okay, so x is going to be 2.5, y is going to be 1.3, and z is going to be minus 2.5. Okay, so 2.5, 1.3, 2.5. Here, 2.5, 1.3, minus 2.5. Okay, so the reason we do this is we want to make this simple. The hammer is always going to be in this position, but if we touch any of the moles, then the hammer is going to move to the mole and then move back. Okay, so it's a very, very basic logic, and we can then later change the position of the hammer. Okay, so we're going to make a script for it. We right click in the assets panel, select create, then C# script, and then this is going to be hammer. Okay, so we have the hammer script. Now we double click it, so it's going to open in MonoDevelop, and after it is open, we can make its logic. Okay, so first of all, we need to keep track of what is the hammer position, okay, where it starts. So we're going to type here private vector3 initial position. Okay, so vector3 initial position, and in the start method, we're going to type initial position is going to be vector3, actually transform dot position. Okay, so we're going to write that down. Okay, and also here we want to make a new method. We're going to type public void hit. Okay, so this method, in this method, we're going to pass a certain position where the hammer is going to move to, and let's type here vector3 target position. Okay, let's open and close curly braces, and what we want to do instantly here is to move the hammer to this position. So we type transform dot position equals to target position. All right, and okay, so you might think, okay, I used the hit method and the hammer is going to move there, but how do we make the hammer to move back? So we're going to do a lerping logic here, just like we did with the moles. Okay, it's some sort of small animation to always make the hammer move back to where it was in the beginning. Okay, so we're going to type transform dot position is going to be vector3 dot lerp. The first parameter is where it is, so transform dot position. The second one is where it should be, so we're going to use initial position. It always should be in the beginning. And the third parameter is the time component, so we're going to simply put here time.delta time, and we're going to test this out. Okay, so we save this, and now the player needs a reference to the hammer because the player is going to call the hit method of the hammer. So here we're going to put public hammer. And here, when we hit a mole, we're going to type hammer dot hit, and we're going to pass mole dot transform dot position as a parameter, because this is where the hammer is going to move to. Okay, so we're going to save this. We go to Unity. We're going to wait for this compilation to complete. Okay, and after this is done, we need to make sure that we're going to put all the necessary files in here in assignments. So in the hammer game object, we need to put the hammer script. So it's going to be here, and in the player, we need to drag the hammer game object in the hammer field. Okay, so let's try this out. We press the play button. Here we are, the hammer is sitting there. If I touch a mole, then the hammer moves to that mole. Okay, and you might notice that the axis of actually the original point of the hammer is a bit off. Okay, and you're going to see why. If you go to the scene here and you do a little trick. Okay, so if you go to the hammer, you right click on it, select 3D object, and then cube. Let's change that to a very small scale, to 0.1. You're going to see that the origin of the hammer is here. Okay, so it means that the hammer model and the origin of the hammer model is the beginning of its axis. Okay, of this little piece here that holds the hammer. So we can just move the hammer down inside the hammer game object to be in this position. Okay, just a little hierarchy trick here. We can delete the cube that we just added. It was just there to help us. We can press the play button, and there we go. We can play again. So let's get the first one, second, and well, it's basically working now. Okay, we can hit all of these moles, and the hammer is going to work just fine. Okay, so this should be it for this video. In the next one, we're going to talk about the challenge in this game. Alright, so let's talk about a challenge for this game. Okay, so the first thing I want you to do is to work with the interface. Okay, right now the interface is very far away from the player, so this would be better if the interface was in this screen here. It makes much more sense, okay, because it's like the machine is turned on and all the information can be seen here. And something that would greatly increase this is if you use a custom font. Instead of using the one that already comes with Unity, you could try and find some free font there that is retro, that is 8-bit style. So this looks very arcade-ish. Okay, it's old, but it's very, very stylish for these simple arcade games. This would be very nice. And another thing is you could add some sort of fake mole in here. Okay, you have the 9 moles there, but sometimes one mole that you can't see it right now. Okay, maybe a mole with a different color, maybe red or white, I don't know, something different would appear, and if you hit it, then you would lose 100 points or 500 points, for example. And on the other hand, you could add a golden mole, and if you hit it, you earn 1000 points at once. Okay, you could think this way, okay, because the player is going to be so worried about hitting all the moles as fast as possible that they might not pay attention to these things. So it's going to add a better challenge to the game. Okay, it's going to be very interesting. So work on these things, okay? Some improvements to the game, all right, a good and a bad mole, something different than the regular moles, and also making a retro interface that is going to be inside the screen. Okay, so this should be it. My name is Glauco Pires. Thank you very much for watching, and I see you next time.